Tochoyo sampo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarmoda pege drolor zampe tsepa palden lame shabla solvade Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karm Utta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Utta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Utta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Utta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Utta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karma Utta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke Kodan Dagi Lo Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Pakyuke Tugdan Dagi Yi Tenyerme Chikto Jingi Lo Makyuke Kodan Dagi Lo Makyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Makyuke Tugdan Dagi Yi Tenyerme Chikto Jingi Lo Om Mahamuni Shakyamunye Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamunye Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamunye Swaha Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparasho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparasho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Son Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparasho Nel Buddha, nel Dharma e nel Sangha prendo rifugio fino all'illuminazione. Con la pratica della generosità
Good evening.
Si racconta
It is said that once
una persona venne da Buddha
a person went to Buddha
e gli ha chiesto,
and he asked him,
Buddha,
Buddha,
cos'è che
what
voi
is it that you and your disciples do?
Buddha rispose,
And Buddha answered,
quello che noi
well, what
facciamo,
we do,
noi camminiamo,
we walk,
noi mangiamo,
we eat,
noi ci sediamo.
and we sit.
Signore,
And this man answered, but excuse me, but we all walk, eat, and sit down. I mean, there's nothing special about that. And Buddha answered, yes, but the difference is that when we walk, we are walking. And when we eat, we are eating. And when we sit, we are seated.
uno dei punti molto importanti
One of the important points is our ability to be present with the mind where the body is.
questo è una cosa particolare
This is something particular because our body has a very special ability to bring us to the present moment.
io
Once I imagined what it would be like to connect with the present moment if we didn't have a body. Imagine that one goes off with a thought, when one daydreams, how do you come back?
quello che ci permette
Because what allows us to come back is
sento qualcosa
we hear something, we see something, we feel something. It's through our body, it's our body that connects us to this present moment. And so from this point of view,
qual è la dinamica
I think, what's the dimension of time beyond our body? I mean, this is another topic, but because we perceive time directly, through the connection between our body and our environment, and even on. If we look at physics, time is linked to gravity and the law of gravity, but this isn't what I wanted to talk about tonight, also because I wouldn't be the best person to talk about all of this. But the point is that our body allows us to come back to the present moment. And to be present in the present moment, being present in what we do,
avendo la capacità
having this ability to direct our mind without allowing the mind to go on to other things. This, one of the benefits of this is that it helps us manage our energies. Because
una delle cose che ci stanca
something that tires us a lot are our thoughts, are these inner conflicts, these inner dialogues that we have, the tensions, that just uses up so much energy, even on a physical level. I can't say it for sure. I don't have this kind of knowledge, but following my own logic, I think the brain as an organ just uses up a lot of energy in the body. If someone has a lot of thoughts, etc., it's energy that is used up. So often one gets tired of things, not for what he's doing, but because he's not using his own resources well. Because you try to do something, but while you're doing that thing, there are thoughts that go towards the past, towards the future, emotions here, reactions there. It's like, just imagine going horseback riding. I remember that one of the last times that I went riding, I started riding when I was about 2.5 years old. And the last time, I don't know, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, was one of the last times in Brazil. And I mounted my sister's horse. the horse's name was Troya, um, because it was a beautiful, beautiful horse. It was a because it was a gift, and it said, okay, the gift is there, but you need to also pay all the monthly. Um, um, See, but you have to pay the upkeep every month, and so, and my husband of my mother at the time was Italian. He was Italian. He said, "Oh, what a gift of Troia. There's Troia in Italian means bitch, like it's to say, oh, what a bad thing." Anyway, so the point is, it was not an easy horse to mount. It had a lot of energy. And there were, so it was a, so so I was wearing a skirt, and that's not the easiest. I was wearing my uncle's boots. He wears a 45. I'm a 42, and this horse was very, very energetic. And so I needed to keep my legs very tight because I was wearing the skirt and I had the boots that were too big and this horse that never stopped. And I had to hold the reins very, very tight to not lose control. At the end, we did just a short tour. And she wanted to gallop, and I had to keep her strongly. And when at the end I was sweating everywhere, my arms, my wrists, everything was just hurting, but we didn't go very far. And so what comes to my mind now is, that same, that same course that we did, if I had total control, then I would have done the same thing, using up maybe a tenth of the amount of energy that I used up, but I needed much more energy. If I had let the horse go, who knows where I would have ended up. So when we don't have control of ourselves, when our mind rebels and doesn't accept to stay in one place because it's just not used to it, what happens is that just uses up so much energy when we need to do something. And this happens every day. We need to do something, where our presence is necessary, our mental presence. Even just listening to someone when they're speaking. How often has it happened that you're talking to someone, or you're listening to someone, and at a certain point you're not understanding anything anymore because your mind has gone who knows where. So when someone does that, you can see that in one's gaze. And then, so the eyes go towards the infinite, and then it's just, at that point, the person's not understanding anything. It's listening. I remember I had a classmate in India. He's a wonderful person, but had a lot of trouble concentrating. And twice I did private lessons with him, with my master. And my master, they were lessons that my master was giving to him, and I went as well. And so he would be explaining, and when he could see that the disciple was a little bit lost, he would ask him, what did I say? And he would make him repeat back what he had said. And often he was lost, and he would say, okay, come back, let's land the airplane, come back here. Okay, now where were we? How often does this happen to all of us? We're there and then we're just gone. Once I was in India, I was reading a text that was relatively difficult on the different philosophical schools in Tibetan, the different Buddhist philosophical schools, and I was quite concentrated. I was understanding. I liked it. At a certain point, I realized I see that my mind had gone totally in a different place. I was reading the words, but I wasn't understanding anything. I was reading in an automatic way, but I wasn't understanding what I was said because my mind was totally somewhere else. And at that moment, I wanted to. I mean, how was it possible that I ended up at somebody's house in Brazil? Based on what was this connection with the text I was reading? And so this was an exercise I did a lot, and it helped me. Is to try to link, go backwards to get to where you were at the beginning. It takes a little bit of energy and time, but at that time I realized that what happened is as I was reading, a fly flew by. I was concentrated, and then a fly went by. The fly then went away, but then it went onto the wall where there was a crack in the wall. And so the eye saw this crack in the wall, and I remembered the crack in the wall of my father's house in Brazil. We're like a database, we're like so we say, so we connect to our memories of the past. And that brought me to my father's house in Brazil and childhood memories. And one thing leads to another, and then I was who knows where. It's an exercise that I invite you to do, if you don't already do it, is that when you see that your mind has wandered, try to go backwards, no matter how much energy and time it takes. Do walk backwards, because if we're able to do that, this will help us develop more awareness and see when the mind wanders. So what happens is, when we don't have the presence in the present moment of what we're doing, when our mind conceptually or emotionally goes on wandering, or another example is like a monkey, that's a monkey that can't stay still, and it's just going from branch to branch, and we're just jumping from branch to branch. Objects of attraction, aversion, one thing leads to another, and in the meantime, we try to keep that monkey still, and it's difficult. It's hard for us. What happens is, the more our mind is agitated, the less it will be present in the present moment, and the more energy we're going to use up to do anything that we need to do. From speaking to someone, to meditating, to writing, to reading, anything, whatever it is, even just cleaning. So, one of fundamental qualities that we need to develop is the presence in the present moment, our ability to not let us be taken by various thoughts. Instead, have concentration and be concentrated on what we're doing. People often ask me, how can I develop concentration? And you say, I have no concentration. I'm very distracted. How can I develop concentration? And my answer could seem strange, but I see that people develop concentration by concentrating, because it's a fact of getting used to it, of habit. I mean, there are many tools, but one needs to put energy in concentrating. And one of the first things is to diminish our distractions. Remember, there's always time to do something else, but now I'm doing this. And we need to train on all levels. I take a shower. What am I thinking about? Water that's falling on my head. Or I try to feel the temperature. If you observe well, the temperature is different from your head to your toes. When the water gets to your toes, the temperature is already different. Feel the sound of the water. Feel the water on every part of your body, while as you wash yourself, the effect of the soap on your body. I mean, try to feel what you're doing. Be there. Because one danger is that when we're not able to be present in the present moment, and the mind is always used to wander, it seems like a torture to be without external stimuli. One is always used to seeing something, doing something, watching something, so not having external stimuli seems like a torture. Instead, it's very important. So let's try to develop this presence. Someone might say, "No, I want to develop. I want to develop shine and samatha and special insight and great samadhis of concentration." First, feel the water on your head when you take a shower. Feel the earth underneath your feet as you walk. Feel this. Be aware of the smells around you, the sounds around you, until you get to the more subtle feelings around you in your body. Allow yourself to perceive. Allow yourself to be present in what you do. So it's important to do it without the hurry of doing something else. I mean, sometimes we have this feeling that simply we just experiencing what we're doing. It's as if we're not doing anything, but instead creating a familiarity with the present moment means doing very, very much, a lot. The point is not about observing water that helps on the water that falls on my head, or the sound of the birds in the morning. I remember when I was a child, there was a music lesson, and it touched me because the teacher brought music from an orchestra, and she taught us how to distinguish the various instruments as we were listening to a whole symphony. So they play all together, but we are able to distinguish one instrument from the other. It's quite particular, this ability. And similarly, no matter where we are, let's try also to, I'm there, I'm in the subway, I'm home, wherever I go, I'm walking through the woods. I try to hear the sounds and distinguish what is what. Once, just a few weeks ago, I was walking along the lake. At a certain point, it sounded like many, many birds. And I said, where are they? And I go to see, I hear them. And I follow the sound, and it was just one who was making an infinite number of different melodies, sounds. It seemed like there were 20 different birds, but it was just one bird making this whole symphony. It was beautiful. And it's beautiful that when we see things, when we give attention to our present moment, that moment acquires a different beauty because we're able to live it. Because unfortunately, when we are physically in a context, but mentally our attention is somewhere else, this doesn't allow us to live what we're doing. And often I hear people tell me, the day just flies by. I don't even know what I've done. How can we remember remember something that we've never perceived? How can I remember something that I was never aware of to begin with? I can only remember what I have perceived, what I saw. So, when we allow ourselves to live the present moment, this has a very special power. This allows us, this takes us to something else that's connected to this, and I don't really know how to describe it well. I don't know what name to give it, but how can I call it? The it's like the categorization of our emotions. Let me try to explain myself better. What happens? Often, let's remember that above all, time, the time of perception of our senses, and the actual conceptual understanding, like this is a tree, this is a person, the emotional time to elaborate what we feel. I mean, these are two separate, they need two separate times, amounts of time. So what happens, sometimes I live a situation, that situation is finished, the person has left, what was said, but inside of me, I need time to elaborate that. That story's not finished for me. So let's say I live a pleasurable experience. And I'm there and I'm feeling that, but at a certain point, I'm already in another situation, because often we don't give ourselves the amount of time to elaborate and to go to another situation. So we come right out of one situation and we go into another. It's like what we do with our phones and our computers and the news. You go from one very important piece of news to something silly. You go from one thing to the next. But if I'm watching something or see something that has touched me emotionally, and now I move to something else, and so it's all mixed up, and then basically I just make a big Russian salad between, of my emotions. I remember a friend in Brazil, a disciple, who told me said something that really helped him a lot, was that every time he would come home from work, he put a lot of energy and attention in his work. He would come home from the office. He would come home, and when he would come home, he would stay in his car for at least a half an hour, even an hour, in the parking lot, and he would just wait, just to elaborate emotions, elaborate thoughts, just to not bring all of that home. Because if I have tension, inside of me from work, and if I'm frustrated because someone said this to me, or my boss here and there, I have tension inside me, and I come home and my wife says, what did you eat today? And, what do you want for dinner? And I say, what do I know what I want for dinner? Instead of saying, thank you that you're going to prepare me for dinner. Why? Because I come home with that emotion. I come home with these like dark lenses. And I put that onto other people. So I react badly.
avrebbe mai letto tutto il manuale? No. Arrivi a casa, c'è già appuntamento di questo, quello, di quell'altro. Quando mai avrebbe trovato il tempo per leggere, elaborare quell'informazione, immaginare come avrebbe trovato la soluzione? Quel momento, quei 15 giorni in nave, che oggi noi diremo ma questo è un tempo perso, è un tempo estremamente importante. Perché se noi non lasciamo il tempo a riflettere, per elaborare le idee, le emozioni, le cose, non vengono così da sole. Quindi, stranamente, quando si fanno le cose con più calma, più lente, alla fine si fanno più veloci. Non so se è chiaro questo come concetto. Perché se io faccio le cose fatte bene e ci penso bene e do il tempo per elaborare, per digerire, eccetera, vado con i piedi per terra. Se mi metto a correre dovrò spesso ritornare sullo stesso punto perché è mancato una cosa, eccetera, eccetera. Quindi, da un punto di vista emozionale, quello che io invito ognuno a fare è creare degli spazi nella propria vita dedicati per digerire le esperienze vissute in quel giorno, in quella settimana e così via. Come facciamo noi per dare del tempo per digerire le cose vissute emozionalmente? Dobbiamo dedicare un momento, il tempo che sia, facendo qualcosa che non serve a nulla, che non ha una funzione specifica, qualcosa che ci permetta però di essere presenti nel momento presente. L'arte, dipingere. Non vado a dipingere perché devo diventare il bravo pittore, devo far vedere all'altro perché voglio vendere, no. Dipingere per dipingere, non importa se è bello, se è brutto, piace o non piace, lo faccio per fare. No? Mi ricordo una volta che ero in un parco a Pechino, si chiama il Beihai Park, un parco molto bello, e lì c'è una stupa bianco con il mandala di Yamantaka dentro. E, mentre ero in questo parco c'erano dei signori, ma un signore in particolare mi ricordo che aveva un pennello molto lungo, con la punta grande così, con un secchio d'acqua, e lui stava scomponendo poesie con l'acqua per terra. E mentre componeva, scriveva le poesie con i caratteri cinesi per terra, man mano che scriveva si seccava e non c'era più. No? Ed era molto bello di vedere il fatto di farlo, per il processo di fare, non per l'attaccamento al risultato di quello che rimane. No? Il mandala di sabbia ci porta anche questo concetto. Io vedo che quando facciamo il mandala di sabbia una delle cose che più la gente rimane scioccata, ma perché lo distruggete? È così bello. Perché la cosa importante non è essere attaccati a ciò che è venuto, ma è il processo di farlo. Quello viene fatto per il processo che è farlo, per il percorso in sé. Perciò dedicare del tempo a fare qualcosa che ci permetta di essere presenti nel momento presente, stare nella natura, fare qualcosa di arte, pregare, meditare. Okay? Questo dovremmo dedicare un pochettino di tempo a questo almeno, possibilmente tutti i giorni. Però c'è una cosa importante, questa attività deve essere un'attività attiva e non passiva. Quello che succede spesso è che cerchiamo di creare i momenti di rilassamento, chiamiamo così, per elaborare le cose, con attività passive. Guardare la televisione, per esempio. Ormai la televisione è una cosa, non so quanto ancora, però guardare un film, guardare una serie, guardare qualunque cosa sia essa. Perché? Quando io sto guardando qualcosa che mi fa riflettere che io devo mettere del mio, è un discorso. Altrimenti, quando noi vediamo la maggioranza delle cose che si vede come intrattenimento, quello che accade è che uno rimane lì fermo e riceve. però in realtà questa attività non porta la persona a elaborare le proprie emozioni, non crea quello spazio, non è un'attività creativa. Leggere è già più creativo, perché richiede di utilizzare l'immaginazione. Okay? Perciò dobbiamo dedicare un po' di tempo a questo. Caso contrario, le varie esperienze che noi facciamo durante le giornate rimangono incastrate dentro di noi emozionalmente, rimangono come dei blocchi che non riusciamo a digerirle. Quando vediamo abbiamo una cosa enorme e non sappiamo più da dove prenderla. E quindi viene fuori lacrime, reazioni nervose, malattie. Perché? Perché ci sono delle cose vissute che già non ci ricordiamo neanche più quelle emozioni a che cosa fa riferimento, Perché abbiamo mischiato una cosa sopra un'altra 2 volte, 20 volte, di qua, di là. A un certo punto, no? Se tu fai una zuppa, metti di tutto e di più, a un certo punto non sai neanche più cosa c'è dentro, Sai solo che fa schifo. Però la devi mangiare. Quindi, veramente, scusate se sono noioso, ripeto le stesse cose, però se noi non prendiamo e dedichiamo un po' di tempo nella nostra vita a fare delle attività che ci aiutino a elaborare, a digerire le nostre proprie emozioni, avremo dei problemi non indifferenti, tanto di salute, di relazionamento, di reazioni, di malessere fisico, emozionale, mentale. L'unica alternativa è avere uno stato emozionale così equilibrato che non richiede dedicare del tempo per equilibrarlo, perché è già sempre costantemente in uno stato equilibrato. Che Rinpoche era un esempio di questo. No? Lama Rinpoche non aveva bisogno di mettersi lì a elaborare le sue emozioni, perché è tutto così chiaro, così... No? Io ovviamente non so cosa passava dentro della sua testa, ma a vedere era sempre così stabile, sempre così bene, quindi non c'è quel bisogno lì. Più noi abbiamo emozioni forti, più abbiamo contraddizioni dentro di noi, conflitti interni, cose, rabbia, invidia, paure, più abbiamo queste emozioni forti, più abbiamo bisogno di creare spazi per non nutrire quelle emozioni, ma per digerire. E la cosa interessante è che per digerire queste emozioni non avviene pensando in quella cosa lì. Avviene facendo qualcosa di inutile. Nel senso che non è una cosa che viene fatta per produrre. No? Inutile in quel senso lì, ma in realtà molto utile. Perché è un po' simile al processo di creazione. Vediamo se mi ricordo bene. Una volta leggevo un libro di un scrittore chiamato Amit Goswami, che è un fisico, che parla di fisica quantistica, indiano. E lui in questo libro parlava a un certo punto del processo creativo. No? E divideva il processo creativo in 4 passaggi. Vediamo se mi ricordo bene. Adesso sono un po'. Il primo passaggio è il contatto. Io vedo qualcosa, sento qualcosa, leggo qualcosa, penso a qualcosa, che sia un contatto. Okay, questo è il primo. Poi c'è un'altra parte che viene chiamata l'incubazione, in cui quell'esperienza che ho vissuto, quel contatto che ho avuto rimane lì sotto, non penso più in quella cosa, rimane dentro. Per un periodo. Poi c'è il terzo, che non mi ricordo più come lui lo chiamava, che è una sorta di un incontro.
It has nothing to do with the previous, but this renews makes what was in the incubation period come out, and the creation comes out. So often people who are very, very creative, they find inspiration in places and things that have nothing to do with their acts of creation. It seems like out of, they go walking in the woods, for example, and then it's like boom, then this it stimulates. It's like, and another aspect. I live an aspect. I have a feeling that I'm going to feel, like a resentment or sadness, and it stays there incubated. I'm not able to digest it. It stays there, and at a certain point, something happens that has nothing to do with that, and then the beast comes out, and so or I answer very badly, or I move away from the situation. I have a reaction that's not coherent with what is happening. Why? Because it woke something up that was there before, but that I wasn't able to elaborate. I remember once I was in Milan, kind of convention that was organized by friends of ours, and in this convention, and it was in this, like the therm, the water baths in Milan, and there was a friend, there was this doctor who was specialized in sicknesses from pollution, and he said something that made me reflect a lot. He said that most sicknesses that are generated from pollution. So once someone gets sick, or so so the pollution, you need basically about 20 years between the time the pollution came out and then the actual sickness comes out. So those environmental causes come 20 years before the actual symptoms appear. If this is clear, if this is correct or not correct, this is what I remember. But when we live something in our present moment, instead the causes that bring us to live that come from the past. And every time we, how can I say, every time we experience something and we have an emotion, any thought or emotion, feeling, I mean, it ends up somewhere. It's not that it just disappears and ends up nowhere. It's like, at a certain point, I take a walk, I go home, and before going home, I take a little bit of trash with me and I just bring it home. It stinks, but we're going to put it in a corner, in a corner where we don't see it so much, and then we just get used to it. But it's there. And it accumulates, and if at a certain point I don't clean, I'm going to have to face all of that garbage in my house. So, when we get angry, when we're upset with jealousy or envy or fear or resentment or any negative emotion, regardless what it is, any thought, when they come, it's not that just ends on, it just finishes in nothing. On one side, it's something that was already there, but we're also generating new things, and that just that ends up inside of us. And we need to do like an inner hygiene, mental hygiene, give space so we clean up all this accumulated garbage inside of us. If not, it's just going to accumulate, and there are two possible results. We're going to implode or explode. If it's like you put you put the garbage under the under the carpet. You know, you just either it just all explodes or implodes. So not being aware that we have all this emotional garbage that's been accumulated when they start to manifest and we're not able to connect this present moment with the past. So we start to think that all the world around us is horrible. My family is not going well. My body is not good. My job's not good because everything, everywhere, every angle, every part, everything just smells bad because there's all of that garbage accumulated. I invite you really to dedicate more time to silent meditation, to prayer, to recitation of mantras, to art. And I don't mean to look at art. I mean, painting or singing or composing or dancing. Do things where you can be present in the present moment in a very active way, where your own emotions can manifest themselves in a non-conceptual way and not just thrown onto someone else. Elaborating your own emotions doesn't mean entering into a dialogue with yourself, because when we get into a dialogue with our emotions, we're nourishing them even more. Instead, when I engage in activity like visualization or creative activity, artistic, etc., where I allow myself to also to manifest my own emotions, it helps me elaborate what I have accumulated inside myself. So this is one aspect that's important. Together with this, let's try to remember that every experience that we live in our daily lives, every person that we see, every place that we see, there's an emotional component inside of us. We're not indifferent. And when we go from one thing to another, it would be interesting to have a kind of ritual, a rite of passage. Like, now I'm talking and seeing this person. Now I'm going to go and be with this person. I do something. I touch my forehead. I jump up twice. I do anything stupid just so that I remind myself that one situation has finished and now I'm going to move on to another. And I can't mix the two, because then otherwise we're not going to be able to be present in the new experience, and we might mix experience, the previous experience with the next. My friend from Brazil, he would spend a half an hour to an hour just sitting in the car before going inside, just to not mix it all up. Maybe one could take a walk, or you come home and you take a shower. Even if I'm talking to a person, I'm finished talking to a person, do something, recite a mantra, take a deep breath, something you decide, so one thing is finished, now I move on to something else. With this, this is what I meant by like this this putting into compartmentalizing our emotions, more than categorizing, compartmentalizing our emotions. This could help us also diminish this inner dialogue, diminish distractions. And then we get back to our starting point today, the importance of being present in the present moment. in a spiritual practice, according to Buddhism, and I think in all traditions, can only speak about what I know. There are three important parts. I mean, the whole path is divided into three parts. The view, Tawa in Tibetan. It's our world view on a very wide and also very specific point of view. What's the correct view of reality? To why not get angry? I mean, the view of our world. What's how I should act. What's real? What's not real? You know, so we look at our worldview. That's the first part. The second part has to do with our conduct, chupa in Tibetan. Our behavior, our conduct is how I speak, how I interact, how I relate in my daily life, my choices, how I eat, how I sleep, how I behave physically, how I relate with the world. And here, in the practice, here we can find the rules. In the first part of the view, we study philosophy. In the second part of contact, there are the vows where one learns what is good for me, what is negative, and I take the commitment to do what's good for me, and I avoid what's bad for me. And the third point is familiarization or meditation, where there are inner aspects that I want to develop, but I'm not ready to apply them yet in my conduct. Imagine, how can I have an altruistic compassion to everyone? When I'm in any situation, my priority is myself, and then if my well-being, and then I see, for myself that, this is how we are. That if my well-being can also be a benefit to others, then okay, that's fine. But what happens is, I understand. I see that part of the conduct that I'm not able to put into practice yet. We see that most of us were not ready to be able to have a real altruistic feelings towards others. We're not ready to see others beyond ourselves, to have a deep, sincere feeling of love towards others, independently of who they are, to have a deep feeling of equanimity. But because we're not ready to do it yet, because we're not able to do it yet, that's why we should familiarize ourselves deep inside. And this is where the power of imagination comes into play. Imagining generates experiences. When we find ourselves in a situation, our reference point in that situation, like how to react, is not our knowledge, but the previous experiences that we've had. So if at a certain point I touch the glass, and the time I touched the glass, the time before when I touched the glass, I burned myself because there was burning hot water inside. Now I see the glass, I don't want to touch it, even if I know that the water now is not hot, and they've explained to me it's not hot, but there's a resistance to doing it. Then I need to touch it, and I see, okay, it's not hot, and then I feel comfortable touching it. What I mean to say is that when we are in a situation, what talks louder is not our knowledge, but the previous experiences. When we imagine something, we are generating experiences. And the more we repeat those experiences, the stronger they become. And so when we will be in front of a situation, our reference point is going to be that inner experience that is going to help us react in one way or another. But to do this, we need to induce experiences, positive experiences, even towards ourselves. I mean, who am I? We're going to leave this topic for another time. But when we observe, when we go to observe our own emotions, how I feel, etc., etc. It's fundamental to be present in what we're doing. Fundamental. So, one of the strongest things that influence our way of being and acting is the identity we have of ourselves. For example, often our entity, like I'm a strong person, or I'm a weak person, or I'm someone with a lot of joy who acts like this or like that, etc., etc. When we live a strong experience, that experience shapes our identity, doesn't it? I am able to, I succeed in something, or I do something and I fail, or what other people say to me, gradually this all shapes my identity, my self-identity. One of the, in Vajrayana Buddhism, is it's fundamental to get used to identify um, to 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 identify to have a positive identity of ourself. This is what we do in our sadhanas, in our Vajrayana sadhanas. We familiarize ourselves with our own aspects, and something very, very beautiful that we can do that has a marvelous power is to allow ourselves to imagine an experience of deep peace. To allow ourselves and live inside ourselves, our own imagination, an experience of deep love, of deep joy, of gratitude, an experience of peace, of humility. It's something that has an enormous power of transformation, but we need to allow ourselves to imagine this. When we're able to imagine it, that brings us to gradually familiarize ourselves with that. But to do it well, we need to be present in the present moment. So it's for this reason that along our path, concentration is extremely important. Because the most powerful resources that we have is our own mind, and concentration is the ability of taking the reins and directing the way we want. And someone could say, "Well, Lama, I'm not able. I have too many thoughts, and my mind never stops." Yes, unfortunately, this is very common for many, many people. Not just today, but in the past, But I think today even more, because there are too many stimuli. So what can we do? Where should we start? And if we've already started, how do we move forward? The first thing is, let's start, as I said at the beginning, have more awareness in the present moment, of what we're doing. That's starting with when we wake up. Try to wake up, for just a few minutes, we just feel present, our own presence, let's redirect. If things started too quickly, we just redirect. We bring our attention to our physical sensations. Our body brings us to our present moment before going to an ability of, concentrating on a mental image, in visualization and imagination or a thought, a concept. First, we need to bring our attention and develop this presence in the present moment, this awareness, this mindfulness in our body and our senses. To then and be able to move it from one and to another. So what I feel physically, for example, I can feel the weight of my own body on the chair, on the cushion, feel the sensations in the various parts of the body, or feel the sensation of the air that touches my skin, the different temperatures of the body. Today, with the mask, I feel the elastic that pulls on your ear. Or, there's many aspects that we could focus on, but having that allows us. What's important is not the sensation, but training the mind to follow what we want it to follow. That's what's important. And bringing our presence, bringing our mind in the present moment. If I need to write something, I concentrate on writing that, and I'm doing that. I'm present doing that. I need to talk to somebody, and I'm going to talk to that person. So to be able to do all of this, as we said at the beginning, to concentrate, we need to concentrate. But the first thing, to be able to concentrate, to be present in the present moment. One thing is that we need to be physically, we need to create habit. We need to use our body as a resource. Let's say the body is the hook that brings us to the present moment in every moment. If we say, what's the easiest way to bring our attention to the present moment is pleasure or pain. There's also this image of someone at a certain point. If you take a little, if you take a needle, for example, to say like prick me. Is it real or not real? This idea. So when there's this moment of pleasure, pain, or great suffering, this brings us back to our present moment. Obviously, we shouldn't try to induce. We shouldn't induce pain to bring us to present moment. No, we should use our body as a hook to create familiarity to being present in the present moment. Another aspect is instead we can diminish the objects of distraction and try to be less dependent on these objects of distraction. Allow ourselves to not have anything to do. Just to sit and be there. Observe our body, the sounds, where we are. And not necessarily need to do anything, need to listen to anything. And what happens is that when we experience silence, which is something absolutely fundamental for our spiritual path, it's not just like noise, but silence, of tastes and also images, sensory stimuli. At the beginning, it can generate anxiety to not have stimuli. If we're very used to having a lot of sensory stimuli. So when we don't have them anymore, it feels like there's this emptiness. I know people who when they get home from work, they need to turn on the TV or the radio or have something, because otherwise one doesn't feel good. It's hard. And unfortunately, the cell phone is something, it's disastrous. I remember once I was talking to a group of people many years ago, people very, very well educated, prepared people, and at a certain point talking about, it said, what's our greatest attachment? And I meant, you know, you know, our attachment to reality the way we think it should be. I mean, this is the greatest attachment that we have. And then a lady, and someone actually answered, no, the greatest attachment is our cell phone. And this was already 10 years ago. I don't know, try to put your cell phone in a drawer and close the drawer by key, for 2 days. You're not going to die. There'll be moments of anxiety of what's happening in the world. Well, nothing's going to change. What's happening where you are, what's happening inside you, what's happening with the people around you, where you are. Try to diminish this dependency we have. This reminds me of an article that I read. This is already quite a few years ago. Even before this constant use of smartphones, it was like when internet had already become something very present. And this journalist asked, but with internet, do I work better or worse? And he tried. He made a rule for himself, which was to use internet for a maximum of 30 minutes twice a day. So 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening. And to do it well, he just turned off the router, so just to make sure that there was no chance of using it to research. And he was a journalist. He needed to do research, and what he realized is that at the beginning, when he took out the internet, he didn't know what to do without it. I mean, he would be there in front of his computer and say, "Now what do I do?" After a few days, he realized little by little, in that half an hour, he did the research that he needed, and he downloaded the material he needed, and then he read the emails. And then he had the time to answer the emails, to read the material, to observe the things, to reflect, for writing, to write. So that half an hour, and then the other half an hour was to answer and to send his work, etc. At the end, he said the quality of his work was much better, and the quantity of work, the quality and the quantity was better, having less access to internet. And I think that we need to be careful. Be careful about these constant sensory stimuli. Forgive me for being so boring that I keep going back to the same point, but this is something that's very present in our lives. Some of you might say, "Oh, Lama, you're old. The world is like this now." But no, but if the world is like this, is it working for you? If yes, then okay. But if not, then we need to change something. What scares me. If scares, that's not the right word. Fear. What I don't like, what worries me more than scares me, is seeing that we in the last 100 years, we've made very important lifestyle changes to things that were the same for millions of years. At a certain point, we change, and then we think that we're special. Um, I think a few years ago there were these doctors that received the Nobel Prize for research that they did on what was called the cellular clocks. So they saw that cells have a kind of an inner clock that works together in harmony with nature, and then when a person respects the times for sleeping, the night and day, this brings the cells to have a harmonious rhythm. Instead, if one if someone if someone goes to sleep the more disharmony there is between the way we sleep and nature, the more sicknesses come out. So a group of researchers won the Nobel Prize for this. But instead, we think it's just absolutely normal to be awake when it's dark outside, and we can, stay up all night. And the other day, I was talking to a veterinarian who was telling me about dogs in nature. For example, they go into heat once a year. I don't know all dogs, but this race, because their inner clock regulates when it needs to go into heat, depending on the length of the day. Instead, today the dogs go into heat 2 or 3 times a year because there's light all the time. So they have different problems from this, and we're animals too, aren't we? So even we were strongly influenced by all of this, by nature. So no matter how difficult it is, I'm convinced that something that would be very good, very beneficial for all of us is to be more synchronized with nature. Wake up just after dawn and go to sleep just after sunset. Have him to be in harmony with nature. And what happens is that, for communication, this is another example of something that we change and we think that we're special. When we communicate one to the other, once I read that, according to what's it called? To neurolinguistics, it said that 12%, if I remember correctly, say 12% of communication is actually verbal. The words that are actually said and heard. The rest is the tone of the voice, the facial expressions, etc. And there are lots of research on this, and you can also do this in your daily life. Say something with a tone of voice that is totally, that doesn't meet, that that it doesn't have anything to do with the words. That is going to weigh more heavily than the words said, or your facial expressions, your body language. When we feel certain emotions, those emotions, they 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 stimulate a certain chemical chemistry in our body, and that chemistry can be felt by someone else. When we're speaking, when we communicate with someone, we have an extremely complex system of communications, that we perceive, the smells, the energy and the intention that the other person is emanating. We perceive all of this. If someone says something to us with coherence, like if someone says something, and the feeling is coherent with the words, then that has one effect, and vice versa is true. We think that all of this very complex system can be substituted by little messages. I mean, it's not for nothing that we have now all of these emojis to go a little bit beyond these short messages. But I worry because it seems that people are, when I say people, I mean all of us, we're losing more and more this ability to listen and to communicate among human beings. And it just stays very superficial, with a vast superficial, there's always less and less value to the words. Because once we've said something, we're already moved on to something else. So it's just extremely important to communicate with physical presence, with intention, with think before you speak, think before you write. Understand that I say something to you because I want to communicate something to you. I want to transmit something to you. And what is it that I want to transmit to you? This is another example of, with communication in modern times, we're not moving forward. We're not developing. We're moving backwards. The more evolved communication is where two people, where they can, just looking at each other, they know what they're thinking without having to say a word. And I think we've all experienced this. I hope, at least. That is evolved communication, and then there are even more evolved communications, but those are for experts, where one can perceive the feelings of someone else. And I saw this with Lama Gangchen, and I saw him look at someone and say, stop thinking that. And once we were here in the Kunpen, and the Kunpen was very full, and someone was seated far in the back, was doing something, was doing visualizations, without saying anything, and he called that person, said, come here. And he said, you don't do that because you're not ready to do that. You don't know how to do that. You're not ready to do that. That person had never discussed this with him. I mean, those are evolved techniques. This ability to communicate from far away. We have these capacities. We just need to use them well. But the more gross our communication is, the less we're going to be able to feel. So I invite you all to write fewer messages. Sit down and sit down and listen, and talk. Not too much. Just say what you really need to say. Communicate. Don't chat. forgive me if I make this distinction, but just be present. This really makes a difference. Try, at the very least, to observe your own breath 3 times a day. 3 times a day, in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Whatever the moment is, at least 3 times a day. For a little bit, just a few seconds. Leave everything aside and just observe the air that comes in and the air that goes out. The air that comes in and the air that comes out. The air that comes in and the air that comes out. 3 times a day. Let's start with just small steps. But if we don't do things, we're never going to get there. Once I did retreat. I was 15, 16 years old. And I did about 6 weeks of solitary retreat without talking to anyone, without seeing anybody. And it was a beautiful experience. And I realized, among other things, is that in Buddhism we have this tradition that we follow, that we have these tools that are valid and powerful for meditation. But if we don't have a good concentration, then we're using all these tools at a 0.00001%. I mean, these techniques that we have they're incredible, but they require at the base the presence, concentration, and so it becomes very important, becomes fundamental to train in present moment. Once I'm able to do that, then there are 1,000 different things to different ways to direct the mind. But just to recap, be present in the present moment when I wake up, when I get dressed, when I take a shower, when I eat, when I work, when I speak, when I do anything. If I need to drink water, I feel the weight of the glass and the feel in my hand. And then I feel my lips that get wet. The temperature, the taste, the texture of the water that goes down slowly, how it feels in my stomach. We try to live everything. This is life. I mean, what happens every moment. And then we try to diminish our distractions. And it's very important to create moments to digest our emotions, to elaborate our emotions, and try to not let the emotions of one thing to pollute the other emotions, other situations. We need to create little mini bardos. Okay, this one thing has finished. Now we're gonna, and then this is finished. Or if I hadn't had time to elaborate, then I create a space box. But and I leave it there until I can elaborate those emotions. But now, when I've moved on to the next experience, I'm present in that one. This is very important. So these are the things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to share with you. And traditionally, it's said that if there's something that has been said that you find beneficial, I just ask you to put it into practice. Remember it tonight, remember tomorrow. Try to do as much as you can to adapt it to your own reality. Not say, oh, how nice, how beautiful, what Lama said. No, use it, now apply it, bring it into your lives. Now we do our dedications. I thank you all. Those of you who are home, close, far away, today I also wanted to make 2 dedications. When we make a dedication, we're taking energy from what has been generated and we direct that energy. So one is for the son of friends of ours, the disciples of Lama Gangchen. The father is Kokyat, who's in Hong Kong, is the child who has genetic problems since birth and is having a very, very difficult moment for him, physical, emotionally. Child, and also in this period of COVID, there are many, many people who are not well, who have trouble. And among these, so one close to us is to me is a friend of ours in Brazil, a boy called Shawan, and I wanted to make a specific special dedication.
Om Pishatse Parnashavare Sarvadzovare Prashamanaya Swaha Om Pishatse Parnashavare Sarvadzovare Prashamanaya Swaha Om Pishatse Parnashavare Sarvadzovare Prashamanaya Swaha Simche neba chinye pa nyurtu nele targyurchi Drove neni malu pa taktu chungwa mebrasho Menama tudan demba dan sanga deje drubayi Kandro simbo la sopa Ninje semdan dengyuruchi Kandro simbo la sopa Ninje semdan dengyuruchi Kandro simbo la sopa Ninje semdan dengyuruchi Chona kuna lyudan sem Dunga neba chinyepa Teda dagi sonamanki Dega gyatso toparasho Taye drova sile traje chir tame mela lasan tapetu Lume kuncho sumdan tutoboche Transon tuyi denzin drup gyurechi Jetsun lame kutse rabden che namkra trinle chokchur gepa da losan tembe drume sasum Drove munse takto negyuro chi nimo dele tsendele nime kunyan delekshi Ninsen takto delekpe koncho sumke jingilob koncho sumke ngodrup tsul Koncho sumke trashi shu kewa kuntu yanda lama dandrame cheki pela lonche sada lamgi yunte rabzon dorje change kopa nyurtobe shu. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i 3 gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. Grazie a tutti.